My name is Dr. Sarah Pickle. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am an associate professor of family medicine. So I teach at the med school 50% of the time. So I don't recall vividly what it means to be a graduate and postgraduate student because I have like repressed those memories in some ways, but I teach students 50% of the time. So I am very in tune with the sentiments of grad school and then grad school and professional school during COVID. And it's a totally new ball game. The other 50% of my time, I'm a doctor. So I see students at Student Health. So we are located in the Lindner Center. More details on our services and our practice site there. And then I also see folks over at UC Health Wyoming, which is my other UC site, and I'm also one of the physicians at Planned Parenthood. So I'm all over the Clifton, Cincinnati area, and I'm really happy to be back in Cincinnati. I did medical school here. I trained in Philadelphia after and did my fellowship on the East Coast outside of New York, practiced there for a few years, and then came back to Cincinnati in 2015. And I will tell you, over the past 5 years, the amount of growth of inclusivity that I have seen happen on this campus is really amazing. And that really is because of the work you all are doing. A lot of it is student driven and student group driven. This is the main nidus for, I think, all of the wonderful things that are happening on our campus and in our community. And I also recognize that I come from a cis straight narrative. And so when I am speaking today, I am speaking as the ally, the advocate, but also just from my perspective of being a physician and working with a lot of gender diverse folks, a lot of LGBTQ plus folks. About 75% of my practice identify as either gender diverse, transgender, or non-binary. And so I share their stories as part of this narrative. And really, this is a space that I think when I'm done chatting, you all will have that space to talk about your narratives too. So what I really wanted to title this presentation was Thriving, because I think that is the opportunity that you all have here on campus, and being part of others' stories to thrive. So my first slide is, welcome, but don't do this ever again. Right? So something like this, only they're not quite 6 feet apart. One individual doesn't have a mask on, but you get it. We welcome you. We are so glad if you are a new student here. You are a huge part of our culture already, and are a huge part of what we're going to become over the next 5 to 10 years. So welcome to UC. And I wanted to start with talking about like the elephant in the room for a lot of graduate students at baseline is imposter syndrome. And this is probably, some of you may have written like your master's thesis on imposter syndrome. So I don't want to spend too much time going into what it is, because it's well established in the literature that a lot of graduate students will feel imposter syndrome. And then individuals that identify in the LGBTQ community can feel this at a heightened level. Add the intersectionality of race and ethnicity, and there can be multiple levels of imposter syndrome that is felt. For graduate students, we know that this is a huge time of mental health vulnerability, and then adding on one's sexual or gender identity can add on that layer of complexity and that layer of vulnerability. And then certainly, Jennifer Johnson, who is Dr. Johnson, she is a neuroscience PhD, and she has a great blog called ladyscience.com, and she talks about being the token person, and whether that's token queer person or the token trans person or that token person in your major or your cohort or your group, and the pressure that can come with that, feeling not only does one belong, but also feeling like every action that one takes has to represent the entire community. So here's Dr. Johnson, so founder of Queer Science. And she also says the fact that we don't see each other represented in our field increases our imposter syndrome. And we think a lot about representation. In medicine, we think a lot about what it means to have a Black doctor, what it means to have a gay doctor, and how important it is for our patients to see themselves in their physicians. And I would certainly imagine that representation throughout all of those fields within graduate school is really, really important. So, how do we have developed strategies against imposter syndrome? So some of you may already have internal strategies that you use. But kind of thinking about, now you're on campus, you have a community, a new community that you're developing, that you're networking with. Maybe you did undergrad or some other studies here, and so this is a community that you're already familiar with. But your strategies against imposter syndrome are going to be some of the same strategies generally to thrive. So one is finding the allies. And one of the things that I'm going to share are lots of resources that we have at UC to help find allies, because that ally, that mentor, may not be in your program. We hope that they are. We hope that you find an inclusive, encompassing person who is going to help you identify opportunities for professional development, identify any areas of personal growth that you need, and that person is going to be inclusive. But we recognize that that might not be the reality for all majors. So working to find that mentor, and again, I'll be presenting a lot of different resources. Another strategy is to reach back a little. So thinking about, if you're a graduate student, how do you mentor undergrads? There's always somebody who's at a different part of their professional journey than you, and how can you raise them up? And in doing so, you not only create this cushion of individuals and this cushion of support around you, but the act of supporting others who are at different points in their journey is certainly a personal strategy against imposter syndrome. Sometimes imposter syndrome will also come in recreating your brand. So what does it mean to do branding? So if there's any marketing communication folks who are on today's call, like, this is your jam, this is probably all you think about is marketing and communications and what you put out into the world. But creating your brand is another strategy against imposter syndrome. So a huge part of who we are is our name. And for some, it's very straightforward. For some, it's very complex. And for others, it's in a state of a journey in and of itself. And one of the things that comes with a professional career is having your name out there in publications, as part of your work. Your name is how you're known. So what if you are in the process of changing your name or redeveloping a brand based on a name that feels more chosen or authentic than the one you were assigned at birth? So when you think about your name, there's a few different things. And really, no matter if you're changing your name or you're really trying to develop your identity as a graduate student, as a professional student, the first recommendation is to create a team of ambassadors to help you brand yourself. So this comes from two sources that I trust very much so. The Harvard Business Review, that did a great review talking to multiple gender diverse folks in 2015 about creating a brand. And the other one is from Dr. Lou Edgy. She is the DIO of the College of Medicine. So she's in charge of all of our graduate students and resident physicians over at the College of Medicine. And she is a branding expert. So these are these two sources' advice. So the first is to rebrand yourself with the help of others. So Dr. Edgy calls it your kitchen cabinet. So you need to have people who are on your team and on your side to get the message out. So whether that is you are going to disclose to individuals about your sexual identity or your gender identity, you are not just in charge of bringing that message. Let others help you. So tell 6 to 12 other people, let them share it. That way you control the narrative. It's a lot for one person to have a platform where they disclose, personal and possibly vulnerable aspects of themselves in a professional space. So by allowing others to participate in that rebranding, you can get your message out very concisely and very controlled. And this is something that happens over time. So it's really rarely a one and done that you are going to be getting this message out. So you're going to meet with your kitchen cabinet throughout your graduate career and your professional career, and you're going to utilize them, whether it is retweeting, getting things out on social media, having discussions in safe spaces to help propel your brand and your story. And you really want to be very thoughtful about those allies that you utilize to spread the word as well. Dr. Edgy also talks about, utilizing well-established hashtags. So she tells her residents, utilize LGBTQ medicine, utilize LGBTQ arts. Let your voice be amplified by the voices around you when you're thinking about branding yourself, getting your message out. And when it comes to a name in print, there is no legal requirement that you use any certain name in your publications. So if you're thinking about creating an identity and amplifying an identity that feels chosen and authentic to you, know that you can use any name you want. I mean, for decades, people have been using other names other than which was assigned to them at birth in their publications, in their professional work. So you can do that. But there's some considerations about the name too. So how do you connect potentially a past or developing identity with that identity that you're thinking about is most authentic in your future? So what if you have already publications that might be under a different name or other characteristics of an identity? So how do you counteract that search engine loss or that PubMed loss for those results of your past and who you are now? So the best advice from branding experts is double down on your social media. So this is where you do that social media campaign, where your kitchen cabinet comes out and you basically internet erase, if you need to, anything else that no longer feels chosen or authentic. But you still need to claim those accomplishments, but without going into detail. Jessica Mink, who is a trans astronomer, who went through her gender journey in her 50s, said, keep it simple. Just say, I haven't always had the same name. I haven't always looked like this. That way, if there's old photos or things of you on the internet, nobody else needs to have those details. Now, it's good to have that elevator speech ready in case somebody asks, so what about this? And that way you've had it and you've practiced it and it is available to anybody who asks in a factual way, but that you don't have to lose all of that work that you did that was under a no longer authentic identity in order to move forward with your professional career. The other thing is embracing the advantage or the disadvantage of your new brand. So every year at the med school, one of my patients comes and chats about her experience being in the business world. And she is a leader in a very progressive company. She transitioned her name and her gender identity in her 40s. So she was pretty well established in her career. And she said, the company itself was very accepting. All of her colleagues were very accepting, but her voice at the table changed. So she went from the man at the table to the woman at the table. Same voice, same thoughts. But she said, okay, now I get what it feels like to be a woman not heard at the table. So there could be potential disadvantages, right, to your new brand, and really thinking about embracing some of those, possible changes and figuring out how to navigate those. I would say the biggest advantage that I see from my interaction with my patients is a level of confidence and authenticity that comes with the creation of this identity, and that they really do thrive. And yes, there are certainly lots of things to navigate when somebody's on medications that are changing the hormonal milieu of their body or changing things about their external appearance or their gender expression to others, or they're sharing with their loved ones about their sexuality. But that embracing of that authentic sense of self really creates an environment where I have seen patients and people in my that I've been able to interact with really truly thrive and be successful, because that's a huge part of their person that they've been able to really live in. So let's talk a little bit about mentorship, because I said at the beginning, if you already have a mentor at UC, or you've had mentors, it's the end all be all. I mean, having a great mentor, somebody who can guide you in the complicated process that is your professional identity and your professional life, is huge. So a couple resources for you, and Chan and Dominique have all of these available that they can send out in a Word document, and you'll have a copy of this presentation as well. But the UC LGBTQ Faculty and Staff Association have a Facebook page as well as a Bearcats landing page that you can find a faculty or staff member who is willing to mentor. You can also email them. So if you are within a discipline and you are unsure of how to maybe approach your mentors, your people who are responsible for your most immediate professional advancement, if you need mentors, the LGBTQ faculty and staff faculty are very willing to all be mentors. There's also a UC Pride Ambassador program to develop relationships with peers. So again, kind of thinking about being an ambassador for somebody who might be an undergraduate or a different part of their life journey, and then also finding your own ambassador to help you into that next stage. And then there's some specific contacts as well. Chad Yule, who's the Associate Director of Admissions, and then Rachel Parks, who's a Senior Academic Advisor, are also very willing and very capable in guiding LGBTQ students through this mentorship and career development part of their life. Some additional resources here from our Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And then Dr. Nolan here, who is the president of the UC LGBTQ Faculty and Staff Association, said, make sure you put my email on here. I want to hear from any student who has any questions. I can be the main connector. So I told Dr. Nolan to expect some emails. So feel free to reach out to her, just even as that first contact. Email sometimes feels less intimidating than going to office hours, and now with COVID, like, what are even office hours? So if you have questions, if you're intimidated by this, reaching out to folks, reach out to Dr. Nolan and she can help connect you for sure. Other things, let me tell you a little bit about University Health Service, which is where I am at on Mondays. So just to let you know, we have a new gender and sexual health webpage that is coming soon, that'll be launched. So when you go to our website, all of this information will be on there and available. But at University Health, we do an informed consent model for gender affirming care. We do prescribe and do PrEP and PEP. And we also have integrated mental health, and we do full spectrum primary care as well. So really, the way we look at it is whatever health needs somebody has, University Health Service is definitely the place for them to land, and often the only place that they'll need to go for really that full spectrum gender and sexual health care. We are on the 3rd floor of the Linder Athletic Center. We are by appointment, so just like really any other doctor's office, you call, you make a visit. We offer in-person and telehealth virtual visits. So we're available in multiple different capacities. If somebody is having a procedure or an IUD placed or something else that they need to be in person, oftentimes, we're going to have them come in. All of our clinicians prescribe PrEP and PEP for gender affirming primary care, including hormones, or a referral to our very robust network of specialists at UC that provide gender confirming medical interventions. I am one of the physicians, and then Dr. Amy Cease. Dr. Cease joined us in February and almost immediately went into like the COVID. She's in charge of all of the COVID response. So right now she's less available than I am. I'm there on Mondays. I'm happy to see new folks, even if it's just a, hey, I need an LGBTQ friendly primary care doc because this is going on, or I want a name of somebody to go to. If you're calling and asking for a new patient visit, you're welcome to say new patient visit. If specifically you're looking for gender affirming hormones or transgender care, you can also say that, and that'll automatically prompt somebody to schedule you with me. We have an on-site lab, so we can do all of our testing on site. We can do all of our imaging on site. So if somebody needs an x-ray, we have a fully stocked pharmacy on site, lots and lots and lots of free external condoms. So we have lots of things available. We offer all of the different long-acting reversible contraceptive devices and have experienced clinician who can put those in individuals of all genders. So that is also available at our site. Just kind of thinking about resources outside of UC, more resources outside of healthcare, counseling and our psychologic service, which is CAPS. And I think they either did or are doing a presentation, but just another reminder about their 24-hour crisis line. They also have one-on-one therapy. They have a trans support group called Tea Time. They offer group therapy as well. The Gender Equity and Inclusion, AKA Title IX office, is a great resource if there are questions about navigating any type of campus policies. This is also where campus policies change. So if you see something that is not inclusive, that is not equitable, this is that first stop into getting change to happen. You can also look at, multiple LGBTQ center, and I think our representatives will talk a little bit more about this, but Facebook, their website, and also the Campus Pride Index can give you some information on resources. And then we've got a big community outside of the UC campus to be aware of. Equitas Health Center, which opened in March, is an LGBTQ primary care facing center in East Walnut Hills, so not far away from campus. They can see individuals with or without insurance. They offer full spectrum primary care as well as hormonal care, and also work from an informed consent model. Central Clinic Transgender Wellness Program as well has both group-based support and counseling for trans folks. Trans Ohio Crossport, Okra Project, lots of LGBTQ-facing resources within the community. And again, in the resource page that's going to be available to you all, you'll be able to click on the links if you want to check any of these folks out. And then national resources. So how do you find national level support and find those hashtags and get connected? So here are just some of the many resources available to LGBTQ professional and graduate students. If you all have resources within your own disciplines, within your own majors or schools, make sure that you advertise those as well, because the national platform is oftentimes where advocacy can happen and where there are also examples of policy change or campus change that then could be brought to UC and to leadership at UC. If you see, things happening at a national level, you could bring that back to our campus as well. I think that is my last slide. I talk fast, so hopefully I left plenty of time for our other folks. I will stop sharing now. I'm happy to answer questions now, answer them at the end, whatever, Chan, Dominique, whatever you think is going to work best.
Well, I would just add that if anybody does have questions for Dr. Pickle or any of the professionals that have joined us, and you don't feel comfortable putting them in the chat or asking them here, you can always contact them privately. And I will say that I've utilized a lot of the resources that Dr. Pickle spoke of. Not only am I a patient of the medical professionals that she mentioned, I've noticed that a lot of the primary care physicians in the UC Health Center are sensitive to LGBTQ issues, and especially someone like Dr. Holliday that I use personally is very good. And I've also utilized the Tea Time trans group at CAPS. And I would say that the more grads that participate in these types of groups or show an interest or reach out to the graduate student government, that's where Dominique and I come from, the more that we can, muster resources or work with people like the LGBTQ Center to, adapt programming specifically for graduate students. And I'm so glad that you brought up the mental health piece, because Dominique and I are working this year, one of our major initiatives is to really bolster the mental health resources available to graduate students here on campus. And one of the pieces that we're looking at is potentially what could we do to bolster those resources aimed specifically at LGBTQIA students. So with having said a little bit, does anyone have any questions? And that's cool because we'll open things up for a little discussion afterward. But right now, I'm also very excited to welcome Matthew and Katie from the LGBTQ Center. And I'm not sure exactly how the two of you want to work out how you want to speak, but I'm really happy you were also able to join us. And I'm so glad, Dr. Pickle, that you brought your expertise for us. Thank you so much. So I'd love to hear what the center's up to this year, too. Thank you.
All right, Matthew, if it's okay with you, I'll defer to you and then fill in holes at the end if I see any. How's that?
So my name is Matthew.
Okay.
My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm going to talk to you guys about the center just from the perspective of pre-COVID, just because that's my experience. And so I'm not really sure what is going on right now. And Katie will be able to answer more on that. But so just with the center, we are located at 565 Stager. We are on the same floor as the Women's Center. Right next door, we have Women Helping Women, and then we are also on the same floor as Ethnic Programs and Services. The center itself, like it's a safe space for students to come in. A lot of our students like to come in and do homework, or they'll just come and hang out with some of their friends. It's a very open space. Anyone is welcome to come in. We have a lot of LGBTQ plus books. So there's a lot of resources on that you can also just check out. We have a whole shelf of just like resources, just in and out of UC and just around the community. We also provide free condoms as well. And then, so that's resources. We also provide a lot of trainings for different faculty sessions or student organizations. So we do a safe zone training. We do gender and sexuality 101 trainings. So those are all something that you can just request through the center, and we can organize that and work to get those trainings out to you. And then we have some student support groups that we run through the center as well. Kaleidoscope, which is a trans support group, which is starting, I believe, Thursday this week. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they said this week.
They're starting up again. We also have Shades of the Rainbow, which is a support group for LGBTQ people of color. I know starting last semester, we started a neurodivergent LGBTQ support group as well. But then there's also other outside student organizations as well. I know there's C Alliance, and then there's Pride at Lindner, which used to be Out in Business. And then at the end of last semester, we started working with a grad student who wanted to create a STEM support group. Not sure where that ended up, obviously with everything that happened at the end of last semester. But there is a potential for like, if you want something and if you see like it's not available or like you want to start up a group, we are always welcome, and we always welcome you to come talk to us, and like we can help you set that up and get things started. But yeah, so that's resources that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, you covered most of it. In terms of functioning now in times of COVID, so the center, so all of Stager is only open from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So that's the current modified stuff. Obviously, you can set up appointments and we can squeeze you in before or after, but that's anybody can come in. You have Bearcat card access to the building. In the center, I think we restricted it to like 3 or 4 people hanging out at a time. Socially distanced, of course, so that way it can still be that space for people to come and hang out and just, have their own space to work and hang out with friends, but minimizing transmission. Yeah, so we have a massive bookshelf. I did a lot of cleaning and reorganizing this week, so there are a lot of those up there. Yeah, I'm trying to think. We'll be putting out more. Right now, we're trying to get our bearings and get this whole semester ready to go. But we'll be putting out more advertisements and stuff via social media, especially, but also Campus Link and the listserv once we get that going. As far as upcoming programs, I think the first actual physical program that we're trying to do is October 12th is the day after National Coming Out Day. So we're partnering with Student Activities and Leadership Development to do a Coming Out Day celebration. So Dean Guardia is really taking point on that one, but that's going to be a lot of fun for sure. And then the student worker, Levi Davidson, and I have been doing, so I'm glad Dr. Pickle was talking about, you said the word thrive a lot, which made me happy because that's the name of the new mentorship program that we're doing. I guess the UC Pride Ambassadors program kind of started and fizzled out and then started and fizzled out. We're like, okay, rebrand. So it's called, Thrive. It's a queer peer mentoring program. And we're sending out the applications for that by the end of this week. So students can apply and they can apply to be a mentor or a mentee. And then from there, they'll get matched up. So there will be a mentor and they'll have 1 to 3 mentees who share similar identities. So that be that sexual or gender orientation or those kind of identities or hobbies and majors and things like that. Just so specifically for underclassmen who are new to campus. So they have a buddy on campus right off the bat that they have something in common with. I'm very excited about that program. And then we're also trying to get a podcast off the ground, but it doesn't have a name yet. So if you have suggestions, let me know. And I think that's all I've got. I mean, yeah, if you feel like coming to check out the center, I'm there every morning listening to music. So come say hi, keep me occupied.
Thank you both so much. I had a question that was sort of following up on something that Dr. Pickle mentioned, which was the mentoring piece, which also I think sort of segues into your information about Thrive. I wondered what sort of opportunities there were for graduate students to volunteer or to donate some of their time to the center in certain ways.
Sure. So actually, as Dr. Pickle was mentioning the mentor program, I was texting my boss and student worker Levi. I'm like, hey, how do we include graduate students in this program? So graduate students have the opportunity to sign up to be mentors specifically as just individuals who are traditionally a little bit older than some of the undergraduate students that we have, maybe a little bit further along in their identity development process. But of course, if there's a graduate student that's like, hey, I really want to be a mentee, it's very flexible. We can make it work. So yeah, that's definitely an option. And then we are talking about volunteer hours. So especially with the podcast, when it comes to graphic design or transcribing so it's accessible and things like that. We'll have a variety of little things that people can stop and be like, hey, you need help with anything? And you're like, sure, here's half an hour of, this, that, or the other thing. And hopefully those options will expand a little bit as we get further into the semester. But that's what we're working with right now.
Jumping along with that as well, I know last year we also had a volunteer program where any student could come in and typically it would just be hey, we need some help putting up flyers around campus, just as you go, can you hang this up? And so I know a lot of, we had a couple students come in and just kind of help with that. Sometimes we would give them just tiny projects in the center. And then other times we'd be like, hey, be a friendly face and welcome people as they come in and direct them in the center as well. So I know there's if students don't have the time to be a mentor or mentee, then there's other options to get involved as well.
Yeah, if you need service hours, we'll make something up for you. Don't worry about it. We'll find something for you to do.
That's great. And how do we access the applications that you mentioned? Are those via your website?
By the end of this week. It's not out just yet. And then you can definitely get to it through social media. And then I don't understand Campus Link, but my boss Dean Guardia does. So he says he's going to help me put it on Campus Link. But it'll definitely be in our Instagram bio, if nothing else. But yeah, so, and we'll disseminate that information through like the, hey, join Thrive posts and stuff. So,
yeah. Let me recommend that if you do have events, programs, opportunities for graduate students, please, I know we've made this connection, reach out to the graduate student government or talk to the graduate school. Their Grad Currents newsletter goes out to all the graduate students, and that would be a great way to advertise anything that you'd like more involvement, from graduate students in. So
sure.
And I'm hoping that we can get something together because of one of my pet programs, which is Transform, the local organization which gathers clothing and resources for students that are transitioning and may not have access to buying, the things that they need for their authentic gender. So I'm hoping that we can, bond together and do something between PSG and LGBTQ this year for them. And so that's a great, and I wanted to let other people know that's a great opportunity. If people do have some old clothes, if some of you have just moved recently and you've got a box or a crate of some clothes you're thinking of dropping off at Goodwill, think about dropping them off at Transform instead. They've got a way to collect it with social distance in place. So I just thought I'd add that little advertising.
And this is Sarah Pickle. In the past, the LGBTQ Center had the closet. Is that still going?
It is. I don't know how it's run, who it's run by. So Dean Guardia is my supervisor, and he's the interim director. And then so I don't know who handles that specifically, but yes, there is a bunch of clothes specifically for that outside of our centers. You can drop stuff up there too.
Yeah, so I know a little more about the closet. So people are welcome to drop stuff off, and we will put stuff. We'll hang them up in our closet. And it's just in the hallway out in front of the LGBTQ center. There's shoes. There's different types of like businessy clothes. So a lot of students will use it for interviews in case they can't find something. And so it's just out front. People are welcome to come check it out. That we know, or that if you're going to use the stuff from there, just let somebody know. And but yeah, it's all open and fair game for everybody.
Yeah,
it might be something more.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say the shoes there are pretty fun.
I was gonna say that might be something worth connecting with the Transform group on specifically and see if we can kind of merge the two programs a little bit better. Yeah, make them a little more cohesive.
And I would say that between these two main resources on campus, the LGBTQ and the work that Dr. Pickle does at the UC Health Center, I think there are two great points of there are two great points of contact for LGBTQ students on campus, and Dr. Pickle works with students like she was saying at all stages. We've even had a conversation about microdosing, which is something that is sort of at the forefront for trans students and for trans individuals. So there's so many opportunities, and I know that. We also, as we partner this year, I hope that the LGBTQ Center and GSG can come up with some really fun digital programs because usually the in-person programs you have are so fun. So we have to find a way to bring them digital. So, keep that beat going because those are some of the most fun parties and programs for students. And we definitely want the grad voice heard. So.
For sure.
So does anybody else have any information or anything you'd like to talk about? I mean, it is only the second week of classes. I wonder how everybody's feeling about being on campus and, how everybody's doing.
Wait, repeat the question. I'm sorry.
I just asked how everybody's doing, being back on campus. It's the second week. It's kind of an odd situation. And I just wondered how everybody was doing, if they had anything they'd like to share.
I can go. Well, I'm not on campus. My classes are online. So, but things are going okay. It's kind of interesting doing classes online. So, just sitting in front of a computer and listening to lectures for, a couple of hours can be a bit exhausting. But as time, goes on, of course, I'll get acclimated to it. But things are going, things are going okay. So just trying to keep positivity, positive energy, positive vibes, spiritually, emotionally, physically. Yeah, it looks like someone said something in the chat.
That's really funny. I love it.
Said all my classes are online, so I'm trying to incorporate my pets into all of my discussion board video posts to keep things interesting. Excellent.
Yeah, they're there anyway, so might as well celebrate them. I think that's so good. And I am, you make a good point too, Dominique. 15.
15 pets?
Oh my gosh, you have a lot of opportunity for photo ops. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yay! Hi, kitty. Oh, who's this? Rebecca. Who's this kitty? You're on mute. Who's this kitty?
This is Charlie.
Oh, hi, Chuck.
Woke him up so he could join, but he's really cute.
He just rolled his eyes again.
Mom.
I love it. And Dominique, I'm glad you mentioned something about, fatigue with this online platform. I'm just so happy that, people came out today, even though I'm sure we're all going to spend a long time online today and the rest of this week. I'm also really glad that Dr. Pickles specifically addressed the name issue, because I myself have been going through a lot with that, trying to figure out how to get my colleagues to take me seriously and how to make that break between, or bridge rather, between my early work, which was one name, and then the papers now as I start to publish more. So I'm just glad that they addressed that. I hope that, Dominique, that we can actually get into that again as we set up some of our mental health programming that we've been talking about. So I think that's a really important, the professional aspect of, the LGBTQ vulnerability that you mentioned, Dr. Pickle, and how we maneuver that in a professional way. I mean, it's really different. At some point, we make that transition from being a student, where there is a certain atmosphere and a certain welcome and a certain camaraderie. And then we move into the professional world, where we find sometimes those resources are lacking. So I really appreciate you speaking about that. And for grads especially, I'm glad that the LGBTQ Center right now is that piece, because I think we are maneuvering that professional aspect, and to have a place to come back to or people to talk to is really important for us. And I hope that we can, amplify what we've started here today this year. So.
Yeah, and I think that's where the LGBTQ Faculty and Staff Association is a great resource too, because to learn from others' journeys and to see people who have done this, and they'll tell you people who have done it well and people who are like, here are all my mistakes that I made, and let's do our best. I'll teach you not to make these same mistakes. But just that shared wisdom that they have, I think is huge for, and I think you're right, Chan. You make that decision at a various time in your career of like, here we go. I am ready to move to that, from that studenthood to that professional identity. We're all lifelong learners, so you never stop being a student. And those of us who went to school for like their whole lives, right? We love being students, but there does come a point where, and for some, it is when it's necessitated by changes in names, and it's challenging right now too with some of the not only legal issues, but also with COVID, the inability to get a new social security card or a passport, and just how that changes to the job search and how it changes this next platform of professional development or internship. So there's a lot of layers of complexity that I think come with being a professional student and being in that transition time in your career too, going from student to professional, and this is that merged time.
This is great. I really hope that we can all continue this conversations throughout the year. I'm so glad the three of you were able to join us today. And if nobody else has anything, I mean, I was just going to open the last of it to conversation like we were doing, but if everybody's cool, then we'll call it that online fatigue that Dominique was talking about. But I just really want to thank the three of you so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks. And good luck to you all as you are, going on this year. And whoo, it's going to be a year, but we got this, right? We got this. We got this. COVID and everything. Or as UHS, if you need anything, a sniffle or something else, come see us.
Yeah, and Katie, that looks great. That workshop, I will definitely be attending. So thank you.
All right, thank you everybody for joining us. We really appreciate it. Don't forget we have our racial and ethnic diversity session tomorrow. I will be facilitating that, and we have BGPSA, SACNAS, and ACRC. We also have, wow, we have so many sessions. I'm drawing a blank. We have CAPS, that is our mental health and self-care session we have on Wednesday. So please join us for that. We look forward to seeing everyone there.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye. See you in the next sessions. Bye.